coming out of the drought, pretty much.
Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock, and I call this meeting of the Water Commission for Tuesday, June 16th to order at 6 o'clock. I appreciate everybody being in attendance. If you would, please join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. First citizens comment period. Do we have anybody here or anybody signed up for comments? Okay. On to item 4, business items. Approval of the minutes for March 17th, which was the last time we met. Should have been in your packet. Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes that are provided in your packet? Okay. If not, motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay. Second, please.
Second.
Okay. I think Don beat everybody. Okay. All in favor, indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item 2, the Utility Department Monthly Activity Report. Stephen, floor is yours.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the month of May, we pumped 11.1 acre-feet out of the Edwards with a year-to-date of 38.54, with available acre-feet remaining out of there is 540. Trinity Well, we pumped 43.48 acre-feet with a year-to-date total of 268.61. All samples, distribution samples for the month passed. Water loss was at 1.9%. Work orders completed was 346, locates was 75. AMI information, total portal customers is 929. Meter readability is 98.03 for 1,678 meters. No main breaks reported. Still waiting on one leak adjustment information from the person that put it in. Eric Lohman attended a pump and motor training course. Currently, the Edwards Aquifer is in stage 2. They dropped to stage 2 at May 30th, 2026. Total acre feet for the year lost, 113.67 acre feet lost. That's all I have to report at this time.
Thank you. Questions, comments for Stephen? Okay. Yeah.
113 acre-feet?
113 acre feet lost from restrictions for the whole year so far.
With all the rain we've had, do you have an idea of how much less water the community's been using? Basically, we're losing revenue, but we're saving water.
Yeah, usually whenever we see a rainfall event, even if it's a small event, a lot of the rain sensors will kick in on the irrigation systems. So we could, like say yesterday, we saw about 500,000 gallons for the day. Roughly, normally it's been about 700,000 gallons average. But you do see a big decrease whenever it rains, even just a little bit, because a little bit of the moisture will go into the rain sensor and it'll shut off the irrigation system.
That's if they have the sensors on.
Yes.
Thanks, Don. That actually brings up something else that I've been discussing with Stephen and Michelle, and that is just from my own personal experience and looking around the neighborhood, I've had the question of, if we've been in drought for so long, are sensors working? Are people attuned to the fact that if we've had an inch of rain, we don't want to be sprinkling or need to sprinkle the next month? And so I'm going to ask Michelle to comment on some things that I had asked her to look into.
Thank you. So I provided you with a copy of just a really rough sample. I took a sample of the 30 of the highest users and started back in September. Actually, it should say 25 there, September of 25. And ran the report to show what their total consumption was over the past few months to up through April, and tried to come up with just a average, or just, you know, see what was actually decreasing throughout the months, or if there was any, you know, change in what their consumption would be. So, and Chair Poll actually added some percentages there to kind of do an average for the older months versus March and April. So he can kind of explain how he came up with those percentages too.
Yeah, I simply averaged a couple of the months and then looked at the change between a September to October of last year, which was a dry time, versus March through April. Now, understand there's averages, you know, water use varies month to month anyway, because we have wet and dry times even during drought periods. But what I really wanted to try and tease out and maybe set before the commission, maybe as a future agenda item, if we think, because we've been in drought for so long and maybe we're beginning to actually emerge from it, is this something that the commission wants to take up in terms of looking into more closely, even as a community education? Many of us, you know, drive around in the morning after rainfall and there'll be sprinkler systems running. And so we, you know, a resident doesn't need to add an inch of rain on top of, water on top of rain. So that's why I asked Michelle to pull this stuff up and played around with the numbers a little bit. It's by far not rigorous. It does seem to indicate that high users are substantially have dropped their use. But is this something that, just a brief discussion, whether the commission thinks this is something we might want to put on the agenda for future discussion, to really probe down into this with Stephen and Michelle and make sure residents are taking advantage of sensors. Are sensors even working anymore? Because it's been so long since we've actually had to trigger them. So brief discussion, comments, thoughts on that, and then we'll move on.
Or for minimum, at least some educational for the people, check your sensors, you know, just because they have them on there, if the battery might have gone dead two years ago, they wouldn't know about it. You know, I don't think you can force them to do it, but at least bring their attention to it.
Maybe, maybe a possible rebate if somebody brings in purchases a new rain sensor or recalibrates it or something like that, maybe, possibly.
I'm sorry, what did you say, a rebate?
Maybe if somebody, like toilet rebates or low flow
Oh, I see.
washing machine, something, maybe a rebate for somebody bringing in showing that they replaced their irrigation sensor or rain
Okay.
sensor or whatever,
Okay.
possibly.
Another thought would be put a message on the water bills. I don't know how much room's there for, never enough, right? Okay, check your sensor, that's pretty short.
So what I also discussed with Chair Poll is that we do have a lot of new customers or new residents moving in and out. I mean, even this past month, I think Monica had about like 13 new residents. So a lot of times we are getting phone calls that say, you know, we don't understand how these sprinklers are working. I don't know how to turn it off. You know, why is my water bill so high? So, you know, education, I think, is a key to letting them know how they need to operate them, what they should be doing. We do provide them with the stage that we're in when we give them a packet, you know, that says, hey, this is our ordinance, this is what you should be doing, you know, and kind of follow those guidelines, but a lot of times, you know, they just don't know and they don't understand. So,
If I could, let's leave this discussion at this point. When we get down to putting things on the agenda for future meetings, I'll add that, and we'll pursue it in a little bit more detail. But Michelle, I appreciate your knowledge. Again, this system just provides all kinds of information in different ways, and this is a way we can make use of it to the benefit of our residents. Okay, thanks, Stephen. Item 3, items applicable to the Water Commission discussed at the City Council meeting. From the April, May, and June meetings, first item is the Saws Water Line Expansion Project is on hold until the easement at the high school is approved by the school district. I don't know if there's any more recent updates on that, but related to that, the city, Garden Ridge, is applying for a water supply infrastructure grant to help fund this project from the Texas Water Development Board. And that, of course, would be a really a helpful thing. The city and Tri-Hydro, second item, city and Tri-Hydro are working with the city of Schertz on a draft wastewater interlocal agreement, which would allow our city to connect with Schertz with the pipeline that is planned to come up Door Lane. So there's some some work being done there. Third item, a draft public works specification manual is scheduled for presentation on our July meeting, so we'll put that on the agenda for July. Item 4, 22700 FM 3009, which is the gas station and convenience store. There's a water line project that is in the pre-construction phase. Those are the things that I captured from the meetings, and I didn't know if the city engineer or city manager had any further recent updates to this that would be helpful to the commission.
I don't know if Vista Ridge, Hank, do you?
I can provide a little bit of an update to the Saws Interconnect. The easement was granted in late April, so the developer's moving forward with their extension of the water line that we will be connecting into. However, Saws won't allow us to connect into theirs until they get that water line accepted, so they don't own the line yet, therefore they can't allow us to connect to it. But in efforts to allow us to proceed with the chance of getting a shovel-ready designation on the infrastructure grant that we're applying for at the end of July, they are doing a cursory review for us and providing a conditional letter potentially if we can get it in time. So we have 5 or 6 different permits we're pushing for right now to get before that July 30th to see if we can get some extra points to score higher on that list. So there's a team working hot and heavy on that for you guys.
Thank you.
And as far as the Schertz, I met with the city manager of Schertz today, and so we have agreement in place. And so it'll be going to their council next month and then our council in August to complete the agreement.
Great. Okay, thank you. A lot of things going on right now. Commission members, questions or comments on any of the city council actions? Okay. Item 4, FY 2027 proposed water budget and water rate study. This was an agenda item added by the city manager, so at this point I'm going to turn the discussion over to Ryan.
Thank you, Chairman. Commission, as I mentioned last year, I got the feeling that y'all didn't have any weigh-in or input or even see a water proposed budget in years past, so I wanted to bring it forward to you today. Now, this is just a proposed budget preliminary. I will be doing a presentation tomorrow to City Council in regards to the water fund, more specifically the general fund, tomorrow night. And again, this is just proposed, and I wanted to make sure y'all had a copy and was just gonna go through. Obviously, you have the total revenue of $3,421,000, and then total expenditures $3,212,000. And the bottom there, you see we have a 10-month reserve for expenditures, which puts us in really good financial, has us in a good financial place with 10 months from that standpoint. If you take a look at page 2, that shows details of our what we project as water sales of 2.3 listed there. And then, of course, the rest of the fees as indicated through the revenue. And then on page 3 is the operation from the expenditure side. Everything that's funded out of the water fund through each line item there. Specifically, there's some requests that Stephen and Dwayne have there that has been plugged in, from a lawnmower and handheld radios to continuous chlorine monitor for a municipal well site. So those show an increase. Right now, we plugged in a 3% COLA for our utility side on the employees. Page 4, that is just the backside where we have our debt payments. The payments will be making payments for the debt service. And then the capital expenditures, as you can see, we have moved the 560,000, or replaced 560,000. That would be to finish the Vista Ridge. And then the 350,000, it says sewer interconnect project. That's a result of us having this agreement with Schertz, because we'll have to go underneath the railroad tracks at Door Lane to connect, and that's gonna be the cost there to tie into our forest main. Correct, Stephen? Correct? Hank, correct?
Correct.
Yes. So those numbers are put together by Hank, our city engineer, in order us for connect at the sewer to tie into the line that's going to hopefully, the line that'll eventually tie into the development that is in motion at 2252 and 3009. So, any questions? I know that's a real quick. I'm hope to bring forward next month a more defined budget, and then probably a water rate consideration for the Water Commission at that time. Right now, what's plugged in is the current water rate in place, basically indicating no increase this year. So we've taken that into account. So,
Question for you. Do you have any kind of timeline on the sewer connect? Because I know that, I think the Revival is supposed to be the first place to utilize that, right? And we haven't seen a lot of movement on that construction.
No,
so
I think they're
any idea?
still finalizing some engineering, I believe. No, they're done. So yeah, they're just waiting on them to move forward with construction. They have a permit, a general permit to move forward. I think they need a couple other smaller permits, I believe, but essentially they could be moving forward on it. So the ball's in their court in this case. But right now you have essentially a 3-inch line that is available for users along that corridor for wastewater or sewer right now. But more importantly, getting tied into Schertz, and that cost is, again, we're gonna have to bore underneath the railroad tracks at Door to tie to that.
So they would be using the external storage tank that's by the tracks interim until the sewer connect is there, and then they would transition to that, I assume? right?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So I think it was probably back in February where we took a look at the capital improvement program, and we identified about, I think it was about $1 million in line replacement. Is that line replacement, is it in here in this proposed budget?
Line replace, you mean the upgrade?
Yeah.
No, not currently in here, but we have an idea what that costs. But we're waiting a little bit towards when we have an idea about the potential developments being solidified up the street, if you know what I mean. So-
Right, Ryan, I think Commissioner Strickland's talking about the first year of our capital improvement plan.
Oh, capital
Those
improvement
first
plan?
year projects, basically.
Oh, no, not currently incorporated in this one right now, so.
Okay, so would that delay like the first year of, I think it was, wasn't it line replacements, Hank, for the first year on, I think it was 6-inch lines, if I remember correctly, 4-inch, 6-inch lines?
Year one's a tank rehab, replacing of some valves throughout the city, and a generator and high service pump swap.
And was that 2027?
It's really,
It
really
just
the
says
the
for-
first take. Whenever we start doing these, it's the highest priority projects. And then from there, we get into year 2 would be just under $1 million, Fairview Circle water line replacement.
Oh, okay.
However, that may swap in prioritization depending on how this road maintenance plan comes out. If there's another road that needs to go above, then we would do a water line replacement right before we fix the road up type thing.
Okay, so the first year in there was roughly $1 million, if I remember right? And it was-
Correct.
And the second year was $1 million?
They're all around $1 million, plus or minus 200 grand, depending on which year you're looking at.
And that's currently not in the proposed budget for the water fund?
No,
Okay.
currently not. And I think that's sort of what I'll get into with the rate study on the next item from that standpoint. But, right now, in the general fund, there was about $1 million to utilize for projects. So trying to figure out what the priority is on that side. Again, you have 10-month reserve. How far do you really want to bring it down? We're at 13 on the general fund. Our recommendation to city council was just bringing it down to 9 until we have future sales tax dollars from that standpoint. But again, ultimately, we look at probably having to borrow to do some of these projects in the future, which will tie into probably a new rate from that standpoint. So I think ideally, we try to look at if we can replace some of the aging lines, maybe in this budget possibly, and then look at doing the street the following year. So I'm also trying to carve out some street dollars to do maintenance that need to be done on some streets that probably have been needed to get some street work done for the last 10 or 15 years as well. So.
I think the answer to some of these questions, which is when do we start seeing line items related to the CIP, is probably tied to the next thing that you're going to cover, Ryan. So why don't you just move on into that, because it's a pretty significant activity.
So not to say that there may not be dollars put in there, but it could, because right now, again, we're at 10 months. I mean, if we drop it to 6 months, that'll open up and free some dollars to use it. But how far do you want to go down on the reserve, So, and the other side of that is, Hank mentioned, we're going to apply for the Texas Water Board. So if, in a perfect world, if we get $640,000 out of that grant, that frees up $640,000 to use on other projects, or to make a debt payment, either or. So. Okay. So.
Yeah, go ahead and move into the second item, which is the water rates.
Yes, sir. So, the water, as mentioned to the Water Commission before, that we would look at getting a consultant on board to help us determine a water rate for the next 5 years. And so we've gone through specifically with Hank to look at some consultants that could help us with this, and we've kind of landed on NewGen Strategies and Solutions. We've looked at their work with some other cities, and we've got obviously received positive feedback regarding the firm's technical expertise, responsiveness, overall project delivery. But we would bring them in for a water rate study to help us with the FY '28 through FY '32. And so some of the key components of this would be like the project management, stakeholder engagement, which they would come to meet with city council and or the Water Commission at some point to give analysis of what they think are the options over these 5 years, revenue requirement analysis, demand usage forecasting, customer class review, rate structure evaluation, financial modeling. That's the creation of flexible financial model to evaluate future funding and rate impacts. Again, that's something that would incorporate those CIP projects and what that variable looks like for paying back the debt. Of course, benchmarking and then deliverables. They would do a presentation with their final report to the Water Commission and City Council. The draft recommendation report, they expect to do this within about 90 to 120 days. So we hope to bring them back in October to the Water Commission with their final report submitted to you all and City Council. The cost of this is gonna be $29,000. We actually budgeted $30,000 in the current budget to support the funding for a consultant to do this rate study from that standpoint. And then hopefully this study will provide the cities, you know, with a defensible, data-driven roadmap for future rates that adequately support our operations, infrastructure, investment, debt obligations, reserve funding, and long-term sustainability of our water utility. So that is the goal of them coming in and putting this together for us. So, sorry, Chairman, yes.
No, finance, thank you. I had an opportunity to preview this with Ryan and Hank yesterday, and this firm is more to the financial side of things rather than technical. I mean, the CIP is taking care of a lot of the technical part. I mean, we know what needs to be done. The numbers are reasonable estimates. What seemed to be valuable here is that the strength of this organization is financial analysis, because that's the elephant in the living room, is that we have these projects. We know how the water, what the run rate of our water system is right now, but now we're going to start overlaying potentially $1 million projects. And it struck me that this firm might be in a position to really advise on that. So,
Yeah, I was hoping to maybe have them here next meeting just to kind of give you some input ideas of what they're looking at doing. But again, they would be coming from Dallas, and there's a cost to that. So I'm trying to keep it, you know, under what our budget is to utilize this consultant to develop this rate study from that standpoint. So ultimately, I feel very good about this. So does Hank, in the sense that this gives us, like I said, our roadmap for the next 5 years to determine this rate. Incorporates, like the chairman said, that technical aspect, you know. And it doesn't mean, I mean, in talking to Robin, we've been looking at the current rate that's been incorporated in the proposed budget, which doesn't raise the rate, but if we need to start getting started on some of those projects, that's something we can look at and come to y'all next month as a consideration.
questions, comments, commission members?
We got one real simple one. Is the 26 amended budget, is that what we're projecting for 26?
Yeah, that's completion through September 30th.
That's what we,
Yeah.
that's where we think we're gonna land for
For-
this year.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I thought so, but I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
And council, I think that we just did that amended budget last meeting as well for both general and water fund. So,
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments, and I want to be kind of careful, but as you're looking to move forward with the rate study and whatever contract vehicle you're going to use to do it, I would encourage first that you look at what happened in 2016 at that contract, because we ended up having to do it over. And it sounds similar in the sense that they came in ultimately with one report and one recommendation. They did not run through a process to develop the recommendations. My second comment is American Water Works Association already has a water rate setting process available for small systems. So as you're developing this process, I would hope that we would ask them to follow that process or some similar standard, as opposed to just, I'm going to write your report with some financial information in it. Third comment is, like every consultant, they'll come in and ask for the data, right, the city's data to be able to do it. So their analysis will only be as good as the data, and we have known since 2016 that there's limitations in that data as far as slicing everything out. So I think there's some room for work on the city side before you press forward, and or maybe said another way, have a couple of touch points, like have them come in to do a development study that this is what we're going to do, how it's going to look, this is the data we need, and then come back later But my main thing is I want to see them come back here with a true analysis of alternatives, like here's a couple viable alternatives, not one recommendation. It needs to cover the whole 5 years, and I don't know how they're going to do any of that without knowing that the water master plan has got a blessing from city council. Right, I mean, that's the starting point of any rate setting process, is what's your master plan and your CIP.
Yeah.
So, without that, they're gonna take a lot of data, they're gonna crunch a lot of numbers, they're gonna give you a report, but it might not be worth the money you spent on it.
No, those are great points, and they actually, in their contract, say they will come up with up to 3 rate scenarios. And they also, they pride themselves on being, expert testimonial folks on, if anybody were to come challenge the rate that we have through the Public Utility Commission, they could represent and defend their points. That's really where the value you get in this, is the insurance behind their study that they're doing for you. And we've already kind of flushed out some of that data that they need. The software that the city of Gardner Ridge uses, they're able to create the reporting that they need for their pieces. And they've already asked for a few things from us, and we've said that we can get that to them.
And the CIP is, the 20-year CIP was adopted by city council, so they know that's what we need moving forward, so, which they'll have a copy of that as well to use, to incorporate it into the rate. So. I just, for myself, I'm trying to be transparent to the Water Commission to show you that, hey, here's our budget, here's what we intend to do with this rate, because this is what the discussion I heard last year was, that, the rate, how we do the rate needs to be evaluated differently, and then that y'all kind of have not seen the budget in past years, and so I'm just trying to be transparent and give you all the information you need to know. So.
To summarize then, we've received a draft. There's a workshop with City Council tomorrow. You'll be coming back to the commission with basically a confirmation, but your thinking is to keep the rates flat for this coming year while I mean, that's an option that's being considered.
That's been incorporated in what it looks like right now.
Okay.
And again, you start looking at, there's 10 months there. Do we bring it down 1 or 2 months to be able to start doing some projects? Without determining if we get that grant or not to support the Vista Ridge, I wouldn't want to move the reserve down until we get confirmation of getting that grant. And we may not know that towards end of the year or early next year, whether we get that grant. But maybe not 10 months, if we move it to 7 to start doing a couple of the CIP projects to get started, what that looks like. But again, as I've let council know in our last workshop and tomorrow night is, we have a series of projects that probably are totaling $3 million and change, but we have about $1.2 million to utilize right now without dropping our reserve in further from what it is now, from 13 to roughly 9 right now. So, but big picture is moving forward with the sewer connection to the supports the development. Development provides the sales tax to offset other revenue.
Right.
So that's the key here. So.
I think the other thing is things move forward with New Gen, if that's who ultimately gets selected, is that representation from the Water Commission would be there. Perhaps somebody, Kevin comes from some background there, having worked on the model. I'm aware of that from a few years ago, to stay plugged in, and whether that be a joint briefing with City Council to avoid multiple trips. I'd say the commission is be more than flexible to accommodate that within, open meeting rules. So just keep us posted if you would.
Absolutely.
Is that acceptable, commissioners?
Yeah, I did have one more question on, we're bringing this, this wastewater ordinance, sewage ordinance on board at the same time, and there's got to be a rate set for that. Are they taking into account the rate for the wastewater? That's no part of this rate study, or,
This is strictly for water, this rate study.
are we gonna put the wastewater on the water bill though?
I don't think that's been discussed. with
What's
me.
that?
No, I don't think we've discussed that quite yet.
Yeah, it's something we'll talk about.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on that, we're going to move forward to 1.1, the wastewater ordinance that's in front of us. This is a revised draft based on our review in the March 17th meeting. You all have had a copy of this, and I'll ask for any questions or comments, hopefully with the goal tonight that if we can clear this with comments that could be adjustable in the interim, that we would then leave tonight with a recommendation to approve to city council. But I don't want to get too far ahead. But we've had a lot of comments on the last two revisions. So starting on my left, anything that you have done?
I don't know what time is appropriate. I did a little research on the state and county rules for wastewater systems. And there is a rule, 30 Admin Code 285, that covers septic tanks, covers expansions of existing units, it covers everything we've discussed. And I think if we incorporate the state and county ordinance or rule into these rules, it would be appropriate, would take care of all of our concerns that were raised in the past, and it has a procedure in it for how these systems are inspected. I went through the building code for the city of Garden Ridge. I couldn't find anything or very much on septic systems, and I found nothing on expansion or for existing systems. So the state and they delegated to the county rule would take care of all those questions. And I think we should just put it in either these rules or the building code someplace so that they're referenced.
We've talked, well, I mean, it's a fair point. I guess the question is what do we want to be the mets and bounds of this ordinance? Because septic systems, except if their use changes, are specifically, they're exempt from the connection requirements here, okay? I mean, we went back and forth a lot on that because this is a septic city, and we characterized it that way. So I guess maybe from a commission standpoint, Stephen, maybe you can add something to this, and Ryan is, do we need to separately describe septic systems? I mean, they've been characterized as a county responsibility. I guess part of it is, have we run into issues from this? And if so, is the solution here, or is it looking at septic systems as part of other ordinances?
We might need to do something just for the areas that the sewer line will be adjacent to, but I don't think for the whole city.
Okay. Questions, comments from others?
I'll just concur with that, since one of two things, I mean, the title of the ordinance says it's for regulating wastewater, which septic regulates wastewater. So at a minimum, I think adding a line, I can't find it off the top of my head here, we reference the New Braunfels standards. It probably wouldn't be hard to put a paragraph in there that just says, hey, for septic, reference the appropriate code, and just have it in there so it doesn't create a question. And I don't think you have to change anything in that, just reference it. not having it there might cause a problem in the future.
Okay. What just occurred to me is whether it could be put up in definitions, where a septic system is as defined by some of the ordinances that you cited, Doctor.
Well, yeah, absolutely, I agree with that, and I think if we just referenced 30 TAC 285, which is the one that covers on-site septic systems, then, yeah, we're covered. But I agree with even that if we don't, if it isn't referenced someplace, it could cause problems later down the line.
Okay. Because really, the only place that septics are talked about are as an exemption. And like I said, we really hammered some of those words out pretty carefully. I went back through that today, and it reads pretty well. Would it be an acceptable solution if we reference that standard up in the definition of septic system? Okay.
Yeah,
That
I
way, we're
think
not messing with a lot of the other words, but it gets it in there.
I agree.
Seem to be okay. Maybe after the meeting, Hank, if you're familiar with those references, you can run with it, or maybe you and Dr. Carmichael could get together at the end of the meeting and.
I think as long as we don't get too much into the weeds and just say we're referencing 30 TAC, Chapter 285.
Oh, okay. If you're
Or other
familiar with it.
applicable state code, then
Okay.
I think that should cover us, and that's where they should be looking for those. State code is going to preside over
Okay.
anything that we have anyways, but it wouldn't hurt to push them to that reference, just
Okay.
to cover all of our bases.
All right.
Yeah, but the only way the county gets notice of any septic, whether it be existing, expansion, or new, is through notification of the builder. Yeah, pretty much. So I don't know how the county's getting, if the county's getting notification. But if it's referenced in our rules, then I think we're covered.
And I do believe sometimes there are people that call in and say, are you referencing this, or are you presiding over the septic? And a lot of the times, I think Michelle pushes them to the county for that type of thing, so that does happen on occasion. And it's sitting in.
All right, if that's acceptable, we'll leave it, we'll add it as a definition and add that reference. Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Other comments?
I had a couple things that, I don't know if they're typos or not. On page 2, about 2/3 of the way down, the subsection 1, it says an exemption to the requirements set forth in section 2.01. And should that be 3.01, referencing this section?
Yeah, it should be, I think.
Okay. All right, and then another one is on page 8, under subsection E, said the approving authority shall regulate the flow and concentration of slugs when they may. Should that be sludge? Or is slugs correct there?
It appears to need to be sludge, but we'll look into that original.
Okay.
Adding on to what Steve was saying, there's a couple paragraph references like that on pages 5 and 6, where everything was indexed like one section number, but the references, let's see, on page 5, parentheses F, except as provided in subsection 305B, I think that should read 404B below, repair or replacement required. Nothing wrong with the wording, it's just it picks up the wrong reference. And then on the next page, page 6, under offense, it says 305 parent B. I think that's supposed to be 404 parent B.
When we added the definitions as its own section, I could see how that bumped everything
it's just
down.
everything
and
got
we missed a
indexed
few.
by
Yeah.
one, and I didn't pick up the slugs one. That was a good catch.
Oh, okay. I got one more that's really sticky, but it
Go ahead.
irritates my sense of form. On page 10, top of the page, the two little I need to be indented to match one little I.
Yeah.
Hey,
You can tell we're getting down to the,
Uh,
we're getting down
can
to
you-
the end of this.
Can you
thing,
repeat
aren't
that one? I wasn't
on
quite to page 10 yet.
10, at the top, the subsection two little i's need to be indented to go under the one little I above it.
Perfect.
I think that was it.
we? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna go, I have like, there are more questions, they're not like fix this. I'm just trying to make sure everybody's comfortable with them. And the first one is just in the definitions, and ultimately what you're gonna find is a lot of my comments are, we may still need to be more in the definition section, but, sorry about that. In the industrial waste, it's defined very, very broadly, and in particular, I'm concerned with the food processing operations or process. I mean, my understanding would be you're including restaurants on that, but read literally, that could mean homes do food processing operations, so I'm not quite sure what we're trying to say there. If it's right out of other regulations, I don't have a problem with it, but that's the one I was a little concerned with. We already talked about the numbering issues, but in the exemptions, one of the conditions it lists under B with 3 eyes is blatant discharge, but that's not defined what that means. Is that in a standard somewhere else? It's the top of page 3. It's 3.01, sub 1, item B, then the 3 eyes. So it's the last condition that an exemption has to meet, looks like.
So you're looking for a better definition of what
Well,
blatant
it
discharge
may be
is?
already defined elsewhere, but I just read it said blatant discharge, and my comment was who decides? So that may need to be defined. And then I know we talked about last time in 3.03, it says public works director shall be notified 72 hours prior. No problem with that, but do we need to say how, and do we mean the actual person or the office? Should it just say public works? And again, that's just a question, but literally it reads to me like I gotta find Steven's phone number and tell him personally 72 hours prior. And then 3.04 in tapping requirements, you answered this question earlier, I think, because it talks about the public works specification manual, and that's the thing that's about to be presented. Am I correct on that? So, yeah, then that's good on that. In 3.05, we're talking about repair. Again, no problems with the concept, but it should be repaired by the owner. It talks about deposits and everything else. And my question is, we don't really define a standard of repair. I mean, should we say, should be repaired to its existing standard prior to the work, or I mean, who gets to decide when the customer's paid enough money to repair the street? I mean, I think we could maybe lower that capital improvement requirement a little bit if we take, just kidding, sorry. And then talks about 3.06, the monthly sewer use charge requirements. Yeah, I guess this gets into my experience in the rate study, but it says the charge should be equitably and proportionally apportion the costs, operation and capital costs among the users according to their contribution of sewage to the system. I'm assuming that that's referring to that industrial waste formula that was later in the document, but it doesn't limit it to industrial waste. So my question was, how determined and what ordinance actually says what that rate is going to be? I don't know if we need that in there yet or not, but. And then same thing down under 4.03 with the defective private lateral. Says you give the owner 24 hours notice and then accept, and it talks about sewage being exposed. Do we need a 3.I or 3I underneath that might say, in such a case, the city will give as much notice as possible? Like, is there some clarification on that one? And then should there be a statement in there that the property owner has the right to be present if requested or something along those lines? And my concern, I don't know if this had legal review or not, but my concern is go on private property and they got some vicious animal or something, somebody gets hurt, then there's legal liability. You already talked about that. And then just conceptually on 4.04, again, talking about repair and replacement, so this is page 5, property owner shall replace it, and then talks about, and they're gonna pay a fee and get a permit. Well, I guess I get the permit, but I'm just kinda asking, we told them they have to do it, and now we're telling them you have to pay a fee to get the permit. Should that not be part of the normal budgeting process? If not, I'm fine with it, but, you know. You already tell the owner they have to pay to do the replacement. Do they also have to have a fee to go get their permit to do that? To me, that's too much.
I'm sorry, where is that? I thought I was in the right spot, but I don't.
It is
Oh, fee,
page
pay
5,
appropriate.
4.04,
Okay,
yeah, and some paragraph A.
okay.
And again, these are all pretty minor things, but I just thought they can get one last look over.
Okay.
And then page 6, 5.05, adoption of wastewater district regulations regarding industrial discharge says, we're gonna basically use Cibolo Creek Municipal Authority, whatever, and it says, in its entirety within this article to govern those customers within that service district. Are all of the customers going to be in that service district, or do we need to address other customers as well?
This is for the area that's within the CCMA service area, so. That would be within their
So then my
service
question is,
district.
what do other customers comply with?
We would only have industrial discharge through our wastewater collection system in the CCMA service area. So if it's the north side of the city outside of CCMA, then they would be on septic, and we wouldn't necessarily be expanding that way without discussing with CCMA first.
Okay. For definitions, it talks about, so this is page 7, 5.03, subparent C. No wastewater discharge public sewer systems may contain strong acid. Okay, I get that. Iron pickling waste or concentrated plating solutions, whether neutralized or not. So that creates a definitional problem for me because the strong acid that's neutralized is no longer a strong acid. So I'm not sure what we're trying to say. Is it the chemical itself we're concerned with, or the concentration of the chemical? It's unclear to me, so you might need to add that in a definition somewhere. Then it talks about the approving authorities, this is in 5.04 sub B. Approving authorities entitled to review and approve installation and operation of any garbage grinder, et cetera. It gives a motor horsepower requirement. And I'm not familiar enough to know, but would that then impact people with household disposal units? Is that not some form of grinder? And I don't know what the horsepower is. So it's right on the line there. So do we need an exemption for household disposal units? And then later on in 505, it talks about approval authority established in compliance with state, federal regulations, requirements for the discharge of radioactive waste and isotopes, which again, I know what that is, but some materials that you may use in remediation may include stuff that has naturally occurring radiation. So do we need to make clear that we're not talking about that? Like if you have radon in your home or whatever and you have to remove materials that could potentially have radioactive waste. So I don't think that's what we mean, but it's unclear what we're saying to me. And then I should have caught the slugs, because I was in the same paragraph, but by the time I read, again, the approving authority shall regulate, I ended up asking myself, who is the approving authority? Because I don't think we ever really said. And you'll be happy to know that is the last of my notes. And again, to be clear, Mr. Chair, I'm just bringing those up as concept questions. I know we discussed a lot of them, and if the commission's fine with it, I'm not here to say we need to start over, but I just wanted to bring those up and get the experts' opinion on what they thought.
So a lot of these pieces are taken from shirts, and one of the pieces that we did discuss with them as part of the agreement is we would be adopting a lot of their pieces, so that if we want to kind of make these our own or clarify more, that may not be an issue, but that's why you see it the way it is because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel on it necessarily. But if there's, if the commission sees a value in tweaking these things, then, it's something we can look into.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, I understand that, but if we took pieces and parts, then the pieces and parts we didn't take may have referenced that or may have clarified it. So maybe we need to make sure that we didn't take something out of context that we should then go back and fix. That'd be my only point.
A question, this whole section makes reference to the Cibolo Standard 191-1. I went to their website. I couldn't find it, and I wasn't able to get a hold of a point of contact. Is this a lift from that, or is it from shirts, or is shirts a lift from Cibolo? Because this is not, so to speak, our words. This comes from someplace else, and you've been real clear about that. But what's the originating document or organization? Is it Cibolo or shirts?
Shirts primarily.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And likewise, their standard has to comply with the Cibolo standard.
Correct.
Okay. Hank, are these addressable comments, you think, from what you've picked up?
I think we can look into them and see if there's better clarity that we can find from their system. I guess the question in my mind initially is, how far do we want to divert from Schertz's ordinance, being they are the one accepting our flow and conveying to CCMA?
Okay. Okay. Do you want to have a conversation with them, and then perhaps at some other point you and I could talk? Because it looks like we're, based on the number of comments, we're probably headed for a final review in hopefully July. I understand your point is that if you get too separated, then they say, well, that's not acceptable, would be their ultimate concern. I think, at least of what I picked up of all those comments, I think the question of authority is pretty important. The question of fees is important. Now, we've talked about that, and I think fees are going to go, in other ordinances, this was not going to be a monetized ordinance saying fees. There's some penalty numbers in there, but that would be my understanding. I had another point I wanted that was related to that. So, and I think the other thing that this 3/4 horsepower, I read that and I thought, well, that's I understand that limit, but that's a fair point. In the future, there's going to be new construction homes that are going to have, we call them waste disposers, but they're grinders. They probably should be, that should be exempt. That probably should be clear. I don't think the city wants to be getting into inspecting people's homes. And maybe that's what this threshold is. I think you commented that they're typically half to three-quarters. Of all, of those comments, those are the ones that seem to be where you could really be up against something.
No, I agree, and my point's not to go in and, like I said, to redo this. If what we lifted off of shirts, we just left out some pieces and that's easily fixed, then I think we should fix it. If it's a standard that everybody's gonna understand anyway, he needs to, then I don't have a problem with it. I just didn't feel right about not asking the questions.
Okay. If I could, I'd like to ask it to be focused around those three things, because those are things that absolutely could come up. I picked up that there was an addition from the last review of, there was a whole section that was added in. Does this pretty much capture everything that's, in other words, are we harmonized with the shirt standard with what's in here now?
And I can't remember if this was pulled, the section 511, I think is what you're talking about.
I saw it, and, yeah, that was it. I see my comments. Was this part of the original specs?
Yeah, this was the added piece, and that's
Okay.
basically giving the city the authority to inspect should they
Okay.
may inspect and surveil and monitor the way that these systems are going.
Okay.
That was the point behind it, and I'm drawing a blank if it was from CCMA or Shirts right now. I just asked him at 3 PM, but it's from one of those two.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. I mean, it was a valuable add. I just thought, wow, that's a whole big new section on this thing. Okay. Couple comments I had. Page 9, 5.08, requirements needs to be spelled correctly. Others? Anyone else have any comments? Hank, your thoughts on the comments here? Can we, are these all addressable, you feel?
I'll have to take a closer look at a lot of them and see, maybe there are some definitions we missed from the Shirts ordinance.
Okay,
And a lot of them are really typos, so I think those are going to be the easiest ones. Just
Yeah.
correct those up, and then we'll take a closer look at those
the other-
intent defining or intent changing potentially, and
Yeah.
see if that's the route that we want to go, or maybe deserves a conversation with, or warrants a conversation with Shirts before we change those, or
Okay.
we might decide that the juice isn't worth the squeeze on that.
Okay. All right, well, at this point, then, we'll plan on taking a final look at it in July, and I think we probably ought to have it wrapped up. It's not time sensitive in that there isn't somebody waiting to hook up just now.
Mr. Chairman, I just one kind of overall comment. If you turn it into a draft, could you please redline it?
That was my fault.
Okay,
Sorry.
whoever.
I did, yes. When
Oh,
I saved
all right.
it, it didn't save the red line, sorry.
Oh, it didn't.
I can send
Okay.
it to you, though.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Procedural question, will this require a public hearing at the commission level, this ordinance, Marissa, Michelle? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. If we rolled in changes in July, could we also use that meeting as a public hearing then also? Or does it have to be a perfectly polished, final, done draft?
So I don't think it necessarily has to be a perfectly polished final draft, since y'all are just a recommending body to city council.
Yeah.
My concern would more so be, if a public hearing is required, what type of notice is required? How many
Okay.
days in advance do you have to give that notice? Like the zoning ordinance, for example, requires notice to all property owners within the city. So we have to contract with an outside company to send a postcard to everybody. That takes months to get together. Is it just as simple, you gotta post the notice on the bulletin board? at least 3 business days in advance? Or is it something you have to do 16 days in advance? All these different laws have these different standards.
Okay.
And so it would more so depend on what are the requirements surrounding the notice for the public hearing would
Okay.
be what I was be concerned with.
At this point, could we ask the city to look into that? Because I think we're getting to that point of final comments and
Yeah, I
what
think
have to
we
do
could
or
talk to
don't
the
have
city
do.
attorney about that and get those answers.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, thank you. That completes 4.1.1. Item 5, future agenda items for the July meeting. I'd like to suggest we put the wastewater ordinance on it, and hopefully this, at this point, we can wrap it up. I'd like to add, maybe I can work out the wording with you, Michelle, rain sensors or water irrigation use, irrigation system use and water conservation, something like that, with the idea of the rain sensors and education, some of the things we kicked around before. Commissioners, anything else that you'd like to add? Yeah.
If we're getting close to the wastewater ordinance being complete and we reference fees in there, we're gonna put that into another ordinance, or are we gonna start reviewing the next ordinance for those fees and?
I don't have a good answer for that. I've just sort of thought, let's get, this is a technical document, get it done, it references fees and so on. I think it's unknown, unlike us just talking about water rates, we're pretty comfortable and familiar with them. I don't know that we've got the body of knowledge to talk about wastewater rates at this point. Ryan, do you want to weigh in on that? You've had some experience from this from other areas of how we might want to go about doing this.
As far as establishing fees
Yeah.
related to
Yeah.
wastewater?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just taking that step. Again, we need to figure out eventually the users from that standpoint. I get an estimate of what that might look like, but
Okay.
There's a way to do it. It just, I need to dig into it with Hank. And at some point, we could probably bring that forward, but
Okay.
it's still a little premature, I think, from
Okay.
that standpoint. I would like to have more of a solid, with this development that's coming down the road. And we will have something here soon to know that if that's gonna happen or not, because that's gonna be the main driver of all this. Cause essentially we're gonna have to pay shirts back through, what they call a wheeling charge and so on, and the pass-through and all that kind of stuff. And so at some point, because of that agreement, we're gonna have to establish rates. And those rates need to not just necessarily be passed through. They need to be something that could be towards like an enterprise fund that helps us with future maintenance and operations like we do with water. So, but I think it's a little too much premature right now. Would you think so, Hank? So. But, we could talk more, offline about that, Brian. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other items besides that for future agenda items, is there anybody here for a second comment period? I don't think so. It concludes the items on the agenda, and we're adjourned at 7:08.